Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Now this one's going to be extremely different, as it's going to be my first Yu-Gi-Oh video, and I want to keep doing this because I love Yu-Gi-Oh, my favorite card game. And today the series we're going to be starting is going to be called Yu-Gi-Oh Meta Impact. And it's basically just going to be talking about cards. And today, we're talking about Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. More specifically, the archetype she's a part of, which is less of an archetype, but it's the yokai girl's archetype, in quotation marks, ×3. So, the first released was Ghost, Ogre, and Snow Rabbit, released in 2015, in the mid-pendulum era, or at the start of the pendulum era. And you had things like, I don't know, Magispectors running around at tier 0. So obviously having a card that its effect negates effects by discarding it from the hand or the field, it's the only one that can discard itself from the field, inconsistencies aside, is strong because it can just negate pendulum effects, which you know is kinda strong. And it was very helpful. It's still helpful. I mean, people are still running it. Though people prefer Ash Blossom or Ghost Bell, usually some people play Ghost Ogre still. And Ghost Ogre in the meta at the beginning wasn't widely used. I mean, hand traps in the beginning were, Effect Veiler, Honest hasn't seen any play. You got your DD Crow, and then Max C, that's for my OCG players. But really, Ghost Ogre didn't see a ton of play, but it started seeing play more in 2016 and 17. And then around, then Ash Blossom came out. But we don't talk about Ash Blossom, because that's Ash Blossom. We'll get to that when we get to the 2017. So each year a new yokai girl. So we're probably gonna get one at the beginning of 2022, which is gonna be nice. I want to see what that card does. Now, what possible uses does Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit have? Which I'll just be referring to as Ghost Ogre for the rest of this video. Well, they have a couple of uses. Negating effects is just nice. So, this is more used on spell cards, since most modern boss monsters, Dragoon, are pretty much immune to card effects. And the ones that aren't immune to card effects are immune to destruction, which isn't that big of a deal. They're still getting their effects negated, but it's still that. So, you could negate a spell card, so you could negate a search card, and then stop the search, and therefore prevent a combo from starting, therefore leaving your opponent with very little options. So let's say, I don't know, a hero player tries to Stratos. You can use Ghost Ogre to negate it, and then, boom. They don't get a hero card to their hand, or a hero monster to their hand, so they can't pop off. I mean, heroes barely see play anymore, but it's just the first thing that came to my mind. And so overall, Ghost Ogre is a very good utility card. And, of course, it's a hand trap. Hand traps are good. Hand traps have always been good. And so, yeah, that was pretty much Ghost Ogre. And it still sees play. It hasn't really dropped out of favor. It hasn't been power crept. And overall, it was doing good. And in 2016, we got another one. So in 2016, we got the next Ghost Girl, Ghost Reaper, and Winter Cherries. Now, disclaimer, this card has never seen competitive play. Have you ever seen a deck list that says, okay, so we're running like 2 Ghost Reapers and Winter Cherries for our hand trap? No. But it might have some uses, some niche uses. We'll get to that. So its effect is, if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, quick effect, you can discard this card, reveal 1 card in your extra deck, then look into your opponent's extra deck, and also banish all cards in their extra deck with the same name as that revealed card. And it's a hard once per turn. Okay, think about that. That would be very useful, but this was released in 2016. Still mid-pendulum era, you still had your Magispectors, but like, Magispectors didn't really need an extra deck. But, let's go over some niche uses. So, in Monarchs, who usually have an extra deck just to use Extravagance, you could use this and have 30 different extra deck cards for 30 meta decks, because it doesn't need you to reveal the same amount of cards as they have in their extra deck. Just reveal 1 and banish all the cards with the same name. So, let's say you're a Monarch player, right? You can play Access Code Talker in your extra deck, or any of the Nightmares, and then just say, I activate Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries for my first turn, like going second, let's say. Even if you're not going second, still good. If you don't have many monsters on the board, which monarchs really don't. So you would say, I activate Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, and, I see you have, Nightmare Phoenix in your extra deck, because I revealed it. Yeah, so I'll banish your 2 copies of Nightmare Phoenix. Usually people run 2 or 3 copies of Nightmare Phoenix, so you're basically banishing 3 monsters from their extra deck at maximum, which is really good. So, Monarch players, I think I just make Monarch meta. Yo, let's go, meta Monarch. And that's really it. This card has never seen any competitive play. It might have seen niche competitive play, but it really hasn't seen much. And weirdly enough, 3 years after her, well, 3 years after her initial release, Ghost Reaper got an adult form called Red Blossoms from Underroot, and then 3 years after that, we got a new card called Terrors from the Underroot in 2021, recently. So maybe this is like the start of kind of like a lore thing, like the Underroot is like the underworld. I don't know, maybe in 2024, we'll get another Underroot card, it will become a whole archetype, who knows. But, let's get into Red Blossoms from Underroot. Its effect is, if this card is in your hand, you can target one spell or trap in your graveyard, in each graveyard, banish them, and if you do, special summon this card. All those Eldritch players are pretty much shaking in their boots. You contribute this card, then target one Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster in either graveyard, banish that target, and if you do, special summon one monster from your graveyard with a different monster card type, Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link, from that target. You can only use this effect, it's a hard once per turn. Now, is this card better or worse? I think it's better than Ghost Cherries, or not Ghost Cherries, Ghost Reaper, because, well, I mean, it is better, because you get to banish a spell card, and some cards, some spell or traps, have graveyard effects, like I mentioned, Eldritch. So, you know, just in case, you can activate this effect, banish that card before its graveyard effect activates, so, yeah, and then you can special summon the card, then you contribute it right after. Okay, and then after you do that, then you can special summon a Link monster or whatever from a graveyard for free. Now, this is a bit more difficult when you have Link decks running around the place, because it has to be different. It can't just be any, like I originally thought it would. But no. So you have to be like, okay, so I have a Link monster in my graveyard. Do I really need that? So, yeah, it's just kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so like if you're facing an Xyz focused deck, yeah, you can get your Link monsters back. That's fine. But if you're facing another Link deck, this card is useless. This card is very situational. Now, I have seen it in some use, just because of formats and whatnot. I mean, like, it doesn't say Pendulum monsters, so it doesn't count that as an extra deck summon, so even though technically they are. So yeah, though Synchro decks have been popping up recently, and Fusion decks aren't doing half bad, especially the Invoked. So, I mean, this card could be somewhat useful. It's just, well, very not useful. Let's go for some quick fun facts. Its Japanese name is Blood Blossoms from the Afterlife. And in the artwork, you can see these 4 little skulls that all represent a different summoning mechanic. Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, Link. And that's all pretty cool. But there is another card. Terrors from the Underroot is a normal trap, which is a TCG exclusive for no reason. I mean, if it was in the OCG, it would be called Terrors of the Afterlife, where you burn in hell, or I don't know. Though, in this card art, the skulls don't all look that unique. Like, the purple skull and the blue skull look exactly the same. Like, the white skull and the black skull are the only one that stand out. Anyway, its effect is target up to 5 cards in your opponent's graveyard, and the same number of your opponent's banished cards. Banish those targets from their graveyard, and if you do, return those Banish targets to the graveyard. You can only use one of this effect per turn. It's a hard one per turn. So, can this card have any use? No. This card will have 0 use. Okay, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. Like, it's pretty bad, but, like, well, it is up to 5 cards and not exactly 5 cards, but why would you want to swap out graveyard and banish cards? I mean, this could be, like, you know, banishing a card with a graveyard effect to swap it out for a card without a graveyard effect, which could be useful. But in any other situation, this would just be a brick in your hand. Kinda like Monarchs. But, yeah, so why? Why would you ever use this? It's kind of useless, if you know what I'm saying. It has uses, but it's more useless in its uses. Though it's not a bad card. I think I've seen much worse. GX era. So yeah, I mean, Terrors from the Underroot has uses, but most of the time it's a brick in your hand. Like, if your opponent isn't playing much of a graveyard-focused deck, or, like, they have very little graveyard effects, yeah, this card isn't going to be that good. I mean, it could see some play. It's not that horrible. I mean, you could probably buy this card, use it, and you probably wouldn't do half bad. But it's just not that useful. How many times can I say that? Well, anyway, yeah, that's all for this segment. Let's get to Ash Blossom, the main attraction. In 2017, we got the card Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. I don't need to explain the effect, but I'll read it anyway. When a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, quick effect, you can discard this card and negate that effect. Add a card from the deck to the hand, special summon from the deck, or send a card from the deck to the graveyard. You can only use each of these effects once per turn, so it's a hard once per turn. I don't need to explain this card. It's basically like going up to your opponent and saying, hey, I know you just activated that card, but no, and then you proceed to slap them in the face about 20 times, leaving bruises on their face, where then they need to go to the hospital, and then their medical bill is out the roof. So yeah, this card is, it annoys everyone. It annoys every single person who has ever got ashed. But thankfully, like a lot of these other cards, it's secret rare. But then the Salaman Great Structure deck came out and said, hey, we know this card is popular, but it was kind of hard to get, you know, and it was pretty expensive. We're gonna make this a common in our structure deck. And that structure deck was pretty cheap. Also, it was a good structure deck. So not only did it print Ash Blossom at common, it was a good structure deck that's on competitive play. So Ash Blossom got really easy to find. Now you can pick it up for less than 20 bucks. It blows me away how strong this card is. Now, imagine it's 2017. Konami just introduces a new mechanic, Link Summoning. They released this new main archetype from the main character, Code Talker. It's all about Link summoning and getting effects from links. Sounds great. Well, you're Konami here, and you see that the whole metagame is about tons of advantage. That's always Yu-Gi-Oh's point. Well, what are you gonna do when the whole metagame is about an advantage? And you'd be like, remember Ghost Ogre? Yeah, that was a pretty good card. And then we released another one. I forget what its name is. Oh, let's release a new one that counters the whole metagame and is way more useful than Ghost Ogre. So then they printed Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and everyone was like, ah. And then so everyone crumpled when this card was revealed. Now, I don't need to tell you, run this card. Now, some cards don't want to run it. Some decks don't want to run it. Say Madolche. Oh wait, there's Madolche Hoot Cake, so who cares? Run it in Madolche. So yeah, even cards or decks that don't want cards in the graveyard or want certain attributes, usually in the graveyard, usually have an out to get this card out of the graveyard by shuffling it back into the deck, banishing it, returning it to your hand, or returning it to the field. They have ways. Also, is it just me, or do I always find it weird that all these guys are like tuners, except for a couple? Like, why are they tuners? What was this Konami's joke? Where they're like, yeah, we'll release a card that you want to keep in your hand as a tuner. Yeah, I'm kind of looking out for that new yokai girl synchro monster that sends itself to your hand, and it's a hand trap. But in all seriousness, it's a good card. I don't know what to say. It's been in almost every single deck that has ever topped anything past 2017. Okay, it's probably not been in a couple decks. They probably run alternate hand traps like Effect Veiler or Ghost Ogre or Ghost Bell, which is the next one we're talking about. But usually, people run Ash Blossom just because of its utility. So, let's go over each of these. I know I just talked about this card for 4 minutes, but I'm going to talk about it for like another 10. So, adding a card from deck to hand. Let's see. Elemental Heroes. God, why do all of these just punch Elemental Heroes in the face? Like, all hand traps just kill Elemental Heroes. Anyway, adding a card from deck to hand. That, like, a draw effect? Nope, no draws. Like, there's... This one effect is so annoying for any player. Any card with a search card that adds to hand, or any effect that adds to hand by drawing or whatnot, is so annoying. Adding from the graveyard to the hand is fine, field to the hand is fine, but the most common way of adding a card to your hand is from the deck. Thank God this doesn't proc on draw phase. Imagine getting ashed during draw phase. That would make me want to quit Yu-Gi-Oh! Thankfully, I'm still here. Special summoning from the deck. Literally every single deck does this. Any archetype that's modern, that's probably like, or that old archetypes that get new support, special summon from the deck. Like even the new Cyber Dark, I'm pretty sure summons from the deck, though I could be wrong. And that archetype is so bad. And sending a card from the deck to the graveyard. Stopping a Foolish Burial is so good. And Foolish Burial type effects aren't as common as you think, but they help so much because they prevent graveyard setup for your opponent, so they can't just get free effects. And yeah, that's why this card is super good. This card could have like a 10-minute video dedicated to every single use. You know what? No, make that a 10-hour long video dedicated to every single niche use you could use this in. Yeah. Also, I mean, it's a zombie fire tuner, so I mean, that's level 3. That's searchable. You would never want to search this. Hand traps, the rule of hand traps is you don't search them. But hey, it's searchable. And yeah, that's Ash Blossom. I don't know what to say. So in 2018, we got Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. So remember how I was talking about how Ash Blossom was good? Now imagine if Ash Blossom had a twin sister. That's Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. I'll just read its effect. You probably know what it is, but I'll just read it for the sake of brevity. When a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, quick effect, you can discard this card to get that activation. Adds a card from the graveyard to the hand, deck, and or extra deck. Special summons a monster from the graveyard, or banishes a card/cards from the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion once per turn. So it's just Ash Blossom, but for the graveyard. And better. Yeah, Konami was just like, okay, we'll just make these things really, really good. And then they never made a good one after this one. Well, that's not necessarily true, but yeah. I'm probably gonna keep this short to like 3 minutes. So, let's just talk about how this is good. Adding a card from... So, remember how I mentioned how Ash couldn't touch the graveyard really besides from sending a card from the deck to the grave? Well, Ghost Bell's like, I gotcha, homie. I cover the entire graveyard. So, basically, shuffling a card is not good, because that technically is adding a card to the deck from the graveyard. So, technically, it adds it to the deck. So it shuffles it in, and then they can't. So Madolche's... Well, it doesn't really matter, Madolche, but still, I mean, that's like the second time I brought up Madolche's. Shuffling a card back into the extra deck, yeah, that's just recycling your extra deck monsters. Boom, you can't recycle your extra deck monsters. Special summons a card from the graveyard. This is so universal in the deck. Every person, every meta deck does this. Special summon from the graveyard in some way, shape, or form. Even I, as an avid Live Twins player, slash Trains player, slash Trap Tricks player, know that special summoning from the graveyard is important. Like, Live Twins, their Link monsters special summon each other from the graveyard if you don't control at least one of their other counterparts. In Trains, their Pegasus special summons from the graveyard when it's summoned, obviously if there's a target in the graveyard. And then obviously some other cards special summon from the graveyard, like Express Bullet Train. And then in Trap Tricks, their new Link monster also special summons from the graveyard during the end phase, as well as they also got Dianea. So special summoning from the graveyard and stopping it is really good. And banishing a card from the graveyard, well yeah, that's just effects. Like, a lot of effects do that for either cost or to proc another effect in combo decks sometimes. The last one's more niche, but I still think it has its uses. Let's go Spell and Haunted Mansion. I'm not gonna stay on it too long. It sees about the same competitive play as Ash Blossom. You probably run both of them in the same deck because so that one can cover the other. But it does make some weird situations where you would want Ash Blossom, but you got Ghost Spell in your hand. So yeah, that's Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion. And it still sees play. I don't know what else to say. It's really good. Also, it's an Earth Tuner. Go-Yo Guardian? Snowman Eater was released a long time ago. It is a level 3 water... Oh, wrong script. Here we go. Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood is a level 3 water zombie tuner effect monster that was released in 2019 and has seen 0 competitive use outside of anti-burn decks. No one plays this card. No one. I don't think anyone in the right mind would. And the reason I went into all that elaboration was, yes, just to make the Snowman Eater joke, because they are both level 3 water monsters. Come on, I like Snowman Eater. So, this is Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood's effect. During either turn, except the end phase, quick effect, you can discard this card, apply this effect. You can only use one of it per turn, so it's a hard one per turn. Each time your opponent special summons an effect monster during the main or battle phase, you gain life points equal to that monster's attack. If you do not gain life points by this effect, your life points are halved during the end phase. So it's like worse max C. Okay, I could see uses for this. If it did not have that secondary line on its main effect, where you lose half your life points during the end phase, it would have been fine. Like, okay, yeah, you gain life points, okay. But you shouldn't be punished for your opponent not special summoning. This card is not that good. It's horrible. This card is probably the worst out of any of the yokai girls. Like, even Ghost Reaper has some use. Like, you get to look at your opponent's extra deck and banish a shit ton of cards if you get it right. But then you have this. You know what? Snowman Eater is a better card. You know, no, we're gonna cover Snowman Eater instead. Snowman Eater is a level 3 water aqua effect monster with the effect where if this card is flipped face up, destroy one monster your opponent controls. Very decent card in the olden days because it could destroy a monster and it had a decently high attack of 1900. Saw a lot of play. It's pretty good. Even today, in like a limited format, it's not that bad. I would play Snowman Eater. Snowman Eater, pretty busted. So let's go over some fun facts. Snowman Eater should be named Snowman Eater because he's technically not the snowman, and Snowman Eater is a dumb name, but I love Snowman Eater. That's like the best name ever. But it should be Snowman Eater, like man-eater bug. So let's go over some trivia with him. He appears in the effect of Snowman Effect, which makes him the strongest monster in the game. Yo, Snowman Eater OTK, let's go. Yeah, this card is like, it's like, hey, you should use Snowman Eater with this card. He also appears in Snowman Creator Factory, whatever, and it shows us the thrilling backstory of Snowman Eater. Also, the effective factory is stupid. It doesn't even mesh with Snowman Eater, but besides the fact that Snowman Eaters are water. Anyway, it shows the thrilling backstory. Snowman Eater was just once a little lizard monster living in the cold. He almost froze to death. The cold is not good to lizards. But then he found the Snowman Factory, and he said, hey, I could use that as an igloo. But then a terrible accident happened. The snowmans got out of control and almost crushed him. He recovered one of the snowmen and wore it, becoming the Snowman Eater. Yeah, Snowman Eater is like 10 times better than Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood will ever be in meta relevancy. I mean, Snowman Eater OTK is probably like 10 times better than the card. Like, I could probably make a video about Snowman Eater OTK. Anyway, that's all I got. I'm gonna go into the next yokai girl. Bye-bye. And finally, we got the newest hand trap last year in 2020, Ghost, Mourner, and Moonlight Chill. That's probably the best artwork out of all of them, though that's subjective. It is a level 3 wind zombie tuner effect monster, and its effect is, if your opponent special summons a face-up monster, except during the damage step, you can discard this card, then target one of those face-up monsters, negate its effects until the end of this turn. Also, that face-up monster leaves the field this turn. Its controller takes damage equal to its original attack, and it's a hard once per turn. So similar to Spooky Dogwood, Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, it targets a monster when it's special summoned, and then you gain, and then something with life points happens. But unlike that one, it's not absolute garbage. It negates the effects of the monster, which can be really good sometimes. And then, well, then if it gets destroyed somehow, maybe by Raigeki or something, I don't know, removal spell, boom! Free burn damage. Now, obviously, this isn't gonna do anything to, like, let's say, Dragoon, but if you attack over Dragoon, it's gonna get destroyed anyway. So then it's gonna inflict, like 3,000 burn damage because it's its original attack. If it was just its attack, it would just be super busted with, yes, reverse burn OTK with Dragoon and Ghost Mourner. But yeah, this card's pretty good. It's not great, but I don't think it's horrible. Could be worse, could be better. It's not really a bang to end off the series. It's just an adequate card. A very adequate card. It can be used in some decks, but others can't use it. But I do think it has some uses, because it can just negate the effects of monsters, and then you can destroy it with like a removal spell, and then just inflict a ton of burn damage to your opponent. That's a plus. You get to negate their effects, you get to destroy it, you can destroy the monster with the removal spell if you got it, and then that's like a +1 in card advantage, a -1 for your opponent, and your opponent's life points are lower, and you just destroyed one of their big boss monsters. It's not a bad card. It is a bit niche, but it's not as bad as Spooky Dogwood. So, yeah, that's the yokai girls. What do I think of them? Most of them are good, except for Spooky Dogwood. All of them have their unique niches, except for Spooky Dogwood. And all, you know, can be used to some capacity, except for Spooky Dogwood. So, in conclusion, it's a pretty well-rounded archetype, except for Spooky Dogwood, and has some weaknesses, especially Spooky Dogwood, but it does have its strengths. So, yeah. Also, did I mention that Spooky Dogwood is bad and you should play Snowman Eater? Anyway, that'll be it for this video. I'm probably going to do more content like this. I actually like doing it. It's a lot more editing. It's going to take longer to come out, but I think it's just more fun for me. It makes me improve my editing skills. It's just fun, and it's something I love. That isn't niche fighting games. So that'll be it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.